All right, today we're diving into one of the most famous, and let's be honest, infamous military units in all of history, the Praetorian Guard. So let's just start with a basic question. Put yourself in this position, right? You're the Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world. You've got legions at your command, millions of subjects, but you're also living in a city that's just a viper's nest of political backstabbing and constant threats. So how do you protect yourself?
But what if your biggest threat isn't some foreign army or a rival senator? What if it's the very people you've hired to protect you? Yeah, that's the wild paradox we're getting into today. The soldiers who were supposed to be your ultimate defense, well, they often turned out to be your most deadly enemies.
And here you have them, carved into stone for all time. Meet the Praetorian Guard. For 3 centuries, these guys were the emperor's personal bodyguards, his muscle, his enforcers, and, way too often, his assassins. They weren't just protectors, they were kingmakers. So how on earth did this situation even come about? Well, to figure that out, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, to Rome's very first emperor, Augustus.
Okay, so Augustus has just wrapped up decades of unbelievably brutal civil war. He absolutely needs protection. But here's his problem. Marching an army into Rome and setting himself up like a military dictator, that's political suicide. The people would see him as a tyrant, and he'd be assassinated in a heartbeat. The Republic was gone, yeah, but he couldn't just dance on its grave. He had to play it smart.
And his solution was honestly brilliant. He created this elite guard, but when they were on duty inside the city, they didn't clank around in armor. Nope. They wore the toga, the formal outfit of a Roman citizen. It was pure political genius. They looked like civil servants, maybe administrators, definitely not an occupying army. It was all about the optics.
But don't let the formal wear fool you. Underneath those togas were the best, most elite soldiers in the entire Roman Empire. And, being the best of the best, that came with some very nice perks.
Okay, just look at the money here. It's insane. A Praetorian Guard was pulling in 720 denarii a year. Meanwhile, a regular legionary, the guy freezing on the frontier in Germany or Britain, he's making just 225. That is more than 3 times the pay for a job that was, frankly, a whole lot safer.
And the sweet deal didn't stop there. Praetorians only had to serve for 16 years. A legionary? He was in for 25 grueling years, and when a Praetorian retired, he walked away with a massive 5,000 denarii bonus. That's almost double what the other guys got. I mean, come on. This wasn't just another army job. This was the absolute gold standard, the best gig you could possibly get in the Roman military.
Now at first, Augustus was careful. He kept these guards scattered in small groups across Italy. But then his successor, Tiberius, listened to his very ambitious Praetorian prefect, a guy named Sejanus. And Sejanus had a big idea: bring them all together. And that's just what they did. They built the Castra Praetoria, a massive fortress right on the doorstep of Rome.
And I mean, just look at the scale of this place. This camp could house up to 12,000 of these elite troops. Suddenly, you've got a permanent private army camped right outside the capital, looming over everything. From this moment on, every single person in Rome, from the emperor down to the senators, knew that real physical power was just a short walk away.
And when you put a powerful, privileged, and very well-paid army all in one place, well, something's bound to happen. It was pretty much inevitable. The emperor's watchdogs suddenly realized that they weren't just on the leash, they were holding it.
Yeah, it didn't take them long to figure out that they could do a lot more than just protect emperors. They could create them. If they didn't like the guy in charge, or, if someone else made them a better offer, they could make a change.
And the most incredible example of this has to be what happened after they assassinated the Emperor Caligula. So, Caligula's dead, there's total chaos, and a few guardsmen are just wandering around the palace, probably looking for stuff to loot. And what do they find? Caligula's uncle Claudius, literally shaking with fear, hiding behind a curtain. Now, did they kill him? No. They thought, hey, we need a new emperor. So they hauled him off to their camp, proclaimed him the new ruler, and that was that. The Senate had no choice but to go along with it. The message was sent, loud and clear. The Guard was in charge now.
And this just became the new normal. It was a pattern. Caligula, assassinated by his own Guard officers. Claudius, put on the throne by the Guard. Nero, the moment he lost the Guard's support, it was game over. And then his successor, Galba, made a really, really dumb mistake. He refused to pay the Guard the bonus they were expecting. So what happened? They just killed him in the middle of the Roman Forum and picked a new guy.
It all boiled over in the year 69 AD, which went down in history as the Year of the Four Emperors.
It was just pure, bloody chaos. And right at the center of it all, the Praetorian Guard. They were backing one guy, then another, as different armies marched on Rome, tearing the empire apart. It was the ultimate proof of just how much power they had, and how destructive that power could be.
So with all this talk about assassinations and political games, it's really easy to get the wrong idea, right? To think of these guys as just some pampered, spoiled palace guards who never saw a real fight. But that would be a huge mistake. Because when the Praetorians actually went to war, they were absolutely terrifying. And this really shows you the two faces of the guard. On one side, you've got the guy on the toga, playing the part of a civilian protector in Rome. But on the other side, you see him for what he really is, a heavily armed, elite shock trooper ready for the battlefield. This is no ceremonial unit.
And I mean, their combat record is serious stuff. They were fighting in Germany with Germanicus. They were there when Claudius invaded Britain. They fought in the brutal Dacian Wars on the Danube frontier. Their own commander, a guy named Cornelius Fuscus, was actually killed in action, leading them from the front. These were not rookies. They were battle-hardened veterans. So what we have here is this incredible paradox, a force that's both a protector and a predator, a ceremonial guard and an elite combat unit. But having that much power, that close to the heart of the empire, well, a situation like that just can't last forever. It really all boils down to this one thing. The guard was a double-edged sword. To be safe, an emperor had to have them. But to stay on the throne, he needed them to be loyal. And that loyalty, it was never guaranteed. It often had to be bought, over and over again. Augustus's brilliant solution had become the empire's biggest problem.
And the end finally came in 312 AD. The Guard made one last gamble. They backed the wrong guy in a civil war and were defeated in battle by Emperor Constantine. And Constantine had just had enough of their games. He didn't try to reform them or change them. He disbanded the entire unit permanently. And then he tore down their fortress. He literally wiped them off the map.
But what a run, right? For 3 centuries, they were the ultimate power brokers, the insiders' insiders. They guarded emperors, they killed emperors, and they made new ones. They were the constant, armed, and dangerous power lurking just behind the throne.
And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. In a system like that, where does the real power lie? Is it with the person who actually wears the crown? Or is it with the people who have the power to put it on his head and to take it right off again?